And right now at 5:30, the host of Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan, joins us now to catch up on the week that was in the Biden presidency and across the nation. Margaret, winter storms have been battering the nation. How's that affecting vaccine distribution?
It's been really disruptive for vaccine distribution. The Biden administration said 6 million doses that were supposed to go from the federal government to states across the country were held up. They're delayed. They'll eventually make it there, but this sets back at least 3 days worth of supply. And we know that's not even taking into account what's happening on the local level in terms of making up lost appointments and all the spillover effects of this severe weather that has hit some states harder than others. And we know certainly in Texas, it looks like the disruption will be lengthy. Not only, do you have problems with water supply and basic electricity, but as we'll talk about with the mayor of Fort Worth and with the mayor of Houston, it also really has slowed down their response in terms of getting shots in arms. We want to talk to them about when they can get that resumed.
Margaret, we were just reporting on the fact that people are still crossing their fingers for those economic stimulus checks. So what's the latest on the economic relief bill in Congress?
Well, March 14th is the hard deadline because that is when the federal unemployment insurance that you are receiving now would expire. So that deadline on the calendar is forcing lawmakers to try to get a bill drafted in the House and voted on, then sent to the Senate within the next few weeks. And we know that the challenge will be having President Biden get bipartisan support or keep his caucus in line, keep all Democrats on board. He can muscle it through with only Democratic support, but he says, first of all, he has to get Joe Manchin and other moderate Democrats on board with that. And if he wants bipartisan support, he has to drop a few provisions that Republicans in particular are objecting to. So we will have to wait and see those details in the coming weeks. But the White House does have its shoulder behind it because they say this funding is so necessary for doing things like updating ventilation so schools can reopen for the fall and so that states can get money for vaccine distribution in the months ahead.
And President Biden met with the G7 today. He did so virtually. What do we know so far about his foreign policy?
Well, this was a big day symbolically on the foreign policy front for the Biden administration. The U.S. formally rejoined the Paris Climate Change Accord. There was that G7 summit that's the world's largest economies all meeting to talk about a global response for vaccine distribution. President Biden stood by and said he'd make good on that $4 billion pledge that was made back in December under the prior administration to help fund global vaccination push. And he also gave a big speech in which he really sharply criticized China, sharply criticized Russia for undermining diplomacy around the world, and dangled this idea of potentially restarting talks with Iran, an offer that Iran has yet to respond to.
Margaret Brennan, certainly a lot going on in Washington and across the country. Thanks so much for joining us. And of course, you can join Margaret for Face the Nation. Her guests this weekend, Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner and Fort Worth Mayor Betsy Price. That's Sunday morning at 10:30. And that's followed by Facing South Florida with Jim DeFeeti. Among his guests this week, outgoing Florida Emergency Management Director Jared Moskowitz. That's Sunday at 11:30, only right here on CBS 4.